started. Welcome. Yay. Welcome everyone to today's Atlanta Author event. My name is George Weinstein. I'm the Executive Director of the Atlanta Writers Club and the author of 7 novels. And I'm going to be, thank you, your host for today's event. I'm happy to welcome my good friend, Kimberly. She's the best-selling author of The Lost Book of Eleanor and her award-winning debut, The River Witch. Before we get started, though, we have a few virtual housekeeping items for our friends on Zoom. And the first thing they need to know is that they're on mute, so they need to use the chat box if they want to communicate with Deanna Smith, who's going to be running Zoom for us. So please use the chat box if you have any questions for Kim, if you have any problems hearing or anything else. We'll have a Q&A session at the end, and we'll present your questions to Kim at that time. We also suggest that you change your screen view from gallery view to speaker view so that you see whoever is speaking on the large screen rather than the Hollywood squares of all the audience members. I just dated myself by saying Hollywood squares. Right. Okay, so today's event is sponsored by the Atlanta Authors Group. Atlanta Authors has been holding author events at the Roswell Library and virtually for the last 12 years. And the list of authors is impressive. We are so excited to be back to meeting in person, and we appreciate your attendance for those of you who could be in the room and also online. These days, bookstores, libraries, authors, and publishers need our support more than ever. Thanks to you all for being here today to help Atlanta authors keep the literary world alive and well into our future and our children's and grandchildren's future. I'm a proud member of the Atlanta Authors Committee, and I want to thank the other Atlanta Authors Committee members, which include our chairperson, Deanna Smith, Barrett, Judy Stanton, Ruth Conti, and the owner of our favorite local bookstore, the book miser herself, Eleanor. Shortly, a couple more announcements. We also want to thank the Friends of the Roswell and East Roswell Libraries for their unwavering support. Atlanta Author also works in association with Roswell Reads, and they've kept their program alive and growing for more than 16 years. So you're lucky to be in an area with lots of literary events. Signed copies of Kimberly's book, The Lost Book of Eleanor, will be available for purchase here today at the back. And at Bookmiser at a 20% discount on cover price. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Otherwise, I was going to make up the difference. Bookmiser is located at 3822 Roswell Road, which is just a short drive from just about anywhere in Roswell. You can go to their website at bookmiser.net for more information about their store. And we will add information to the chat area of Zoom so that those of you who are online can find more information about Bookmiser. Now I'd like to introduce Eleanor, the owner of Bookmiser, who will introduce today's author.
I'm going to do a little bit more of an introduction of you too, George. Because yes, you were most modest in your accolades of yourself. But all right. So audience, today is your lucky day. Not only do you get exceptional writers, but you are going to listen to some remarkable people. People who, beyond working on their own manuscripts, provide tangible help all year long to other authors on their own writing journey. Let's begin with our moderator, George. I think George is known as Atlanta's writing whisperer. Quite frankly, few Atlanta authors have done more for the Atlanta writing community than George, and you'll hear about that in a little bit. And also, few Atlanta authors have written in as many diverse genres as George has. So that's a remarkable feat. Regarding his philanthropy to other authors, he told you, he's the previous president of the Atlanta Writers Club, an organization founded in 1914 to provide education and support for writers. But for over 20 years, he has been the engine moving that organization into one of the largest and most active writing associations in the United States. Motivated throughout his own writing career to advance the writing of others, since 2008, he has also managed the Atlanta Writers Conference, helping nearly 3,000 authors understand the business of writing and achieve their own dreams of publication. He is currently executive director of the Atlanta Writers Club and the Atlanta Writers Conference director. In between a day job, a family, involvement with the Atlanta Writers Club, George somehow finds time to write. Maybe at 1 in the morning.
I don't sleep.
2 in the morning. Okay, that's what I thought. So story, not genre, motivates George, and as a result, he published Hardscrabble Road, a Southern historical novel, Aftermath, a Southern mystery, The Five Destinies of Carlos Moreno, a novel of forgotten U.S. history, The Caretaker, a contemporary relationship drama, Jake and the Tiger Flight, a children's adventure, and Watch What You Say, a suspense thriller. And coming out in just a few months, the long-awaited sequel to Hardscrabble Road, Return to Hardscrabble Road. So stay tuned for further details about events for that one. So that's our George. Like so many authors I have had the honor to introduce over the last 25 years, Kimberly Brock's imagination inspired her writing from a very early age. Perhaps it has something to do with setting, as she grew up in the rolling hills of North Georgia. In a 1912 farmhouse surrounded by legendary numbers of critters, including kittens, calves, stray dogs, and there were closets under the stairs, and nights filled with the symphony of crickets chirping beneath the endless sky of sparkling stars.
Who's the writer now?
She wrote her first official novel in the 4th grade, which she says was dutifully typed and enhanced by her mother. In 5th grade, her poem was chosen for special mention by the Georgia Poetry Society. And so it began. After receiving her bachelor's degree in 1996 from the University of West Georgia, Kimberly pursued careers in acting and as a special needs educator. Special blessings for people who pursue education.
I like the troublemakers. If you stay in your seats, we're good.
But writing was always an itch that needed scratching. So in 2012, she published her debut novel, River Witch. It was an Amazon bestseller, featured by both national and international book clubs, and included in multiple reading lists. Praised by RT Reviews and Huffington Post as a solemn journey of redemption, enlightenment, and love, and evocative of the stories of Flannery O'Connor and Carson McCullers. Kimberly's debut novel was honored with the prestigious Georgia Author of the Year Award in 2013 by the Georgia Writers Association. While working on her next book, she immersed herself in sharing the craft of writing. 2012 through 14, she served as the blog network coordinator for She Reads, the national online book club, and worked to spearhead several women's literary efforts. In 2014, she founded Tinderbox Writing Workshop, a transformative, creative experience for women in the arts. In 2016, she served on the advisory committee of the first Milton Literary Festival, and I think you also did it in 2017 as well, right? Gave birth to a literary festival, y'all. That's huge. In 2022, she released her second novel and the book we celebrate today, The Lost Book of Eleanor. It has spent 3 weeks on the Southern Independent Bookseller list, and I suspect by year's end, we'll have a long list of awards and recognitions attached to it. It's already been received incredible reviews from Lisa Wingate, William Kent Kruger, Patty Callahan, Susan Meisner, and a whole host of other authors that we love. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Kimberly Brock in conversation with George Weinstein.
All right, let's get started. So generations of women are central to your novel. Can you please tell us about the ones who played a major role in the book?
Let's see. So obviously, the book is about Eleanor Dare. But it's really about her descendants. And I had to pick and choose where to begin with that. Eleanor Dare was the daughter of the governor of the lost colony of Roanoke. And most people know the history of the lost colony of Roanoke from like 4th or 5th grade. But we don't hear a lot about Eleanor Dare herself. We know the name of her daughter, Virginia Dare. In most of our history classes, we're told that she was the first British or white child that was born in the New World. So we hear about Virginia and her disappearance, but we don't hear a lot about Mom, Eleanor. So Eleanor features in this book. Eleanor, in my story, survives from the disappearance of the colony. And we'll talk more about that history later. And 16 generations later, I have my two main characters who are her descendants. A mother and a young widow at the end of World War II named Alice Young, and her daughter, Kimberly, who is 13 and full of questions for her mother, which is like what your job is as a 13-year-old girl, right? So those are the characters.
Super. And this book is what I call forgotten U.S. history, because I think most of us have probably forgot the lessons of 4th and 5th grade.
Yeah.
So could you remind us about the lost colony of Roanoke and also the Dare Stone, which plays a
Yes.
role in this book?
So I was a really precocious, still am, I think, little girl. And I was very interested in the story of the lost colony in 4th grade. I think it may be one of the few things I remember from 4th grade, because it was a story that didn't have an ending. And I was that kid that, you know, if there was a trail you weren't supposed to go down, say on the field trip to Red Clay, maybe that's where they had to find you. Or if there was a door you weren't supposed to go through, or I was a snooze. And so I loved the idea of this story that nobody knew what happened to all of these people. And for me in the 4th grade, I was sitting there listening, and they say, there are 115 people that get on a ship from England and they come to the New World and then they vanished. And I thought, somebody's telling a lie, because 115 people don't just disappear. So the lost colony true history is that this colony comes, it's our first British colony with women and children. So, you know, boys disappeared all the time. Girls, women, children, a little troublesome there, you know. And when this colony came, they were supposed to land in the Chesapeake Bay. And the governor of the colony was somebody who had come on previous expeditions. He was a map maker. He was a man who was an artist. I'm not sure he was a great leader. So when they landed to check on some guys they had left off of the coast of North Carolina, the guys in charge of the ship said, sorry, folks, this is the end of the line. And they left them in the wrong place. So it didn't start out well from the beginning. And they ended up on Roanoke Island. Eleanor was his daughter, newly married and very, very pregnant. So they land, they're there for a couple of months, things start going south pretty fast. And all of the colonists voted her father, John White, off the island. So they sent him back to England for supplies. And he was unable to return for 3 years because England was at war with Spain and they needed the ships. So by the time he comes back, there's no sign of the colony. There was a fort that looked like it had been built and disassembled. There was markings. You probably remember they talked about Croatoan. Was it an island where they went? Was it a tribe that they joined? Nobody knew. And they looked for a couple of days and a storm sent them back to their ships, and John's family was never found. Eleanor was lost. So I knew that story. I had written my first book And the internet was kind of new. It was like having the library at home. You could just sit for hours and learn, find things. And so I'm digging around for interesting historical Southern obscure history. That's kind of what I like. If it's something that I should know about and I don't know about it, that gets me going. So I'm researching and I come across this article that connects the lost colony history to my home state of Georgia. So all of the bells and whistles go off for me. There's this article and it says that in 1939, and I'm terrible with numbers, so if I mess up my dates, please, I apologize. So in 1939, this guy in North Carolina is walking across a highway. He and his wife are on vacation, and they're in their big car, and they stop on the side of the road, as you do. And he gets out and he's walking around, and they're about 50 miles inland from where the colony would have been in North Carolina. So they're in a little town called Edenton. Now, we drove through there this summer, and I remember the first time I read this, I was like, how likely is this really? There is nothing there now, like nothing. I've never been anywhere where there is so much nothing. So the guy, they stop on the side of the road, and he trips over a big stone. And it's at the end of the Depression, 1939, right? So it's kind of the heyday of Armin Bailey, and all kinds of spectacles are in the news, and people are looking for any way to make a buck. And he sees this big rock, and it's got an inscription, but he can't read it. And he thought, maybe it's like a Native American artifact. Maybe somebody will pay me for it. So he threw it in his trunk, and they went on their way the rest of their vacation. They came down into Atlanta to Emory College, and he walks in, plops it down, and says, so what do you give me for this? What do you think? And over the next couple of years, all of the experts that looked at the stone, everybody at college, people who came from all around the world lost their minds because they thought it was Elizabethan English. It read like a message from a survivor from the lost colony of Roanoke. And there were initials at the bottom saying they were EWD, Eleanor White there, who would have been the daughter of the governor, Virginia's mother. So this unravels over the next couple of years. It ends up going with one of the professors from Emory. His father was the president of Brenau University in Gainesville. So I'm going, ding, 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 we found it, it's in Georgia. So they take the stone there, and they decided they would look on this message. It says there was a massacre. Almost the whole colony is wiped out. There are a few survivors, including Eleanor. Her daughter and her husband were also killed. Basically, it's a message to her father to say, hey, Dad, we're going this away. And it's a tombstone because it's got her husband and her child's name, and it mentions another stone as well that would have been a marker. So they decide they're going to go find the second stone. And they go and they look all around this same area where it's supposed to have been, and nothing is found. So, being brilliant, they put out the word and they said, if anybody else finds another one of these stones, we'll pay you. So what do you think happens then? In the Depression, everybody wants to be paid. So every moonshiner and kook comes out of the hills with stones. There were like 42, I believe, total of these things found over the next few years. And it's a very fishy story. And the story on those stones is fishy. It brings Eleanor down into North Georgia, conveniently, where she spends years living with a Native American tribe, marries their king, has another child, a daughter named Agnes, and then they all get angry with her for having a child with the king, and she is cast out and sent down the river, down the Chattahoochee into Fulton County, about, we could spit from here and hit the cave that she supposedly died in. And I read all of that and I thought, doesn't that just sound like a story a man would make up? But I like the first stone, and it looks different than the others. And it took a couple of years, and the Saturday Evening Post in 1942 sent a reporter, and he debunked the whole thing. They found some moonshine guy that they think had been carving all the stones for them. Everybody pointed fingers at one another, and they're all dismissed, and it's a big embarrassment for the college. But over the years, there's never been any way to connect that first stone with that guy. There's never been any scientific proof, and they have tried to authenticate or debunk the stone, the first one. And that stayed with me for years and years. And when I say years, I mean like 19. Those are the two pieces of true history in the book.
No, it's good. So every novel has some kind of mystery or question at its heart. How would you describe the central quest of your book, and what's at stake if your heroines don't succeed?
I think I did not know the answer to that until after the book was published. I had so many questions in this book. This book is a book of questions. It's not a book of answers. So if you're going to read this book and you think, oh, it's going to tell me what happened to the lost colony. Well, first of all, it's historical fiction. And so I made it up because we don't know what happened to the lost colony. I get readers saying, I wish there was more lost colony history. And I say, me too, because we don't know. So I think it's a book of questions. I think the question at the heart of this book, and that's at stake for each of the female characters, is how do we live